Think about it. The existence of a predator depends on who it is up against, and that's what has made predators come this far, fighting the popular Marvel heroes like Black Panther and Wolverine. In Predator vs. Wolverine, a lone predator stalked Wolverine, Earth's greatest prey to exist. In Predator vs. Black Panther, a young Yautja took over Wakanda, almost dethroning the king and looting their mines. Now, the writer, Percy, turns his attention to Marvel's most preferred property, Spider-Man, where he uses a climatic condition such as extreme heat as a setting to explain the notoriety of the crimes in NYC. In the illustrations, the use of orange and yellow hues by artist Ferreira brings to life the heat wave that sends NYC into a tizzy with blackouts and trapped residents. Here's a predator called Skinner, who ventures out to mark his victims with his gory artistry. You can't sit just back reading this comic issue as you watch Spider-Man take on his latest challenge, which boasts a gritty narrative. Here's some more information about the latest issue. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Predator vs. Spider-Man. What happens in issue 1? As New York City boiled in the sweltering summer heat, it brought restlessness and all kinds of escape mechanisms to beat the heat. New Yorkers were downing juices and junk food in every dirty corner of the city, but with the rising mercury, crime was rising. It was a different kind of crime, not your run-of-the-mill that involved knives and guns. A unique kind of crime was lurking over NYC, a crime that wasn't just cold-blooded but also artistic to some extent. In an abandoned, shady building that witnesses claimed to be infested with drug addicts and squatters, the sound of photographs being taken blinds Detective LaPearl, whose partner was inspecting the crime scene. A bloodied, skinned body lay hanging, with missing parts such as a jaw, a finger, and so on. Who was this killer that had murdered his victim at leisure, with impeccable cuts? If it wasn't a robbery, then what was the motive behind such a heinous killing? They nickname him Skinner. As the detectives try to find a motive behind the killing, wondering if the killer was a vigilante on the prowl, waiting to wipe out evil from the neighborhood, or was something else, Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, was being chided by his editor, Mr. Jameson. The pressure was on Parker to bring in juicy crime stuff, which would create fear among the people. Only then would their newspaper get the online clicks to stay afloat. Failing which, Parker would be fired. Spider-Man promises he is onto something and will be back with details when he spots a bunch of baddies looting a place. Before Spider-Man goes after them, there is a hint that the detectives surveying the earlier crime scene have spoken to a few neighbours, not knowing that one of the neighbours was Parker in disguise. Unfortunately, Spider-Man reaches the runaway looters' hideout late as he is diverted on the way to save a few kids enjoying a burst water pipe. When Spider-Man reached their hideout, he found the ringleader of the looters skinned and hung in the same way the detective duo had found the earlier victim. The ringleader's murder yet again pointed to the fact the killer was a vigilante out to kill thugs. Parker finally confesses to a desperate Mr. Jameson that there was a serial killer on the prowl, who mocks him by adding, "Beware, you could be next." Still, before they can post it online, a sudden citywide power outage prevents them from breaking the news online. There's mayhem due to the blackout. Subways shut midway, streetlights go off, and so on. Two women stuck in the subway witnessed the unimaginable. A cut-up face of a man pressed against the train's window from the outside. They screech in horror. The serial killer was for real. And guess what? We know one of these women trapped on the subway train. It's MJ. Not willing to stop the news break, Parker suggests going back to the old times and publishing the physical form of the newspaper. Soon, newspaper vendors and black marketeers sell the Daily Bugle like the most cherished panacea of tabloid news, drawing the attention of the detective duo. How did a reporter, Peter Parker, know about the Skinner when everything was hush-hush? They now want to meet Parker. And that was the end of issue number 1. What would happen next? I believe the next 3 issues would want to resolve 3 burning questions. What's the motive of Skinner? Is he a vigilante or just faking it to draw out Spider-Man? Who was he? And where was his lair? While Spider-Man would have answers to these in a jiffy, getting to the Predator Skinner would be a Herculean task. Because the pattern of killings was different, the Predator was just behaving like a regular serial killer on the prowl, making it seem like the crimes he was committing were clearly under the jurisdiction of cops and not a superhero. While Parker's involvement on one hand was to get the Daily Bugle running, it remains to be seen how Spider-Man would navigate the bylanes of jurisdiction to find the truth. The premise of the story is expected to be a slow burner, thereby postponing a face-off between Spider-Man and the Predator. In addition, after the newspaper article, the detectives would want to know how Spider-Man knew about Skinner. They would first drill him and act cocky, or hire him to investigate further, which would eventually lead to the exposure of Parker as Spider-Man. I'm sure it's going to be an exciting read ahead. The most R-rated Predator? Whatever happened to the times when Marvel trod lightly with our friendly neighbour Spider-Man storylines, ensuring the stories were restricted to cater to a family audience? But times have changed, and Marvel has taken a leap of faith in introducing Skinner, the gruesome killer responsible for gory killings. Never has any story of Spider-Man seen such bloodshed, but this one's different. The fact that the Predator mercilessly skins his victims and cuts up parts of the body says a lot about his personality. Also, I wonder what he did with the skin. When I read the issue, my first impression was how the makers took the risk of telling the story of a bone-chillingly scary predator. I admit that Peter Parker has had a dark past, but never disturbing. But with Skinner's introduction, Marvel is willing to scream from the rooftops that Spider-Man now has a predator as gruesome as Batman's Joker. This tale promises to be a horrifying one. The concept of Predator Skinner seems to have taken inspiration from Joker's nerve-wracking moment when he cut his face and wore it like a mask. Skinner displays a Joker-level sadistic tendency. His insatiable desire for blood is displayed in his killings. The way he drains out his victims, slowly skinning them until the last drop of blood is drained out. One word: gory. Since it's too early to specify Predator Skinner's goals, I want to focus on how Skinner functions and what's in store for us as readers. Traditionally, Spider-Man was always up against predators, who had a direct motive against Spider-Man and never went about committing random killings. But here, Spider-Man had difficulty knowing Skinner's code of killing. Why was he out killing people? Mostly thugs, junkies, and squatters. It breaks all the rules of the Predator vs. series, depicting this story as more of a murder mystery that needs to be solved. I don't think the story has anything to do with Peter Parker's original timeline and breaks the continuity of the Spider-Man series. Story-wise, this plot may be a crossover from other superhero timelines that make no compromise in violence and could be Spider-Man's bloodiest story ever. As previously mentioned, the story is written by the usual suspects, Benjamin Percy, the last name of horrific violence, and penciled by Marcelo Ferreira, known for his illustrations of macabre killings. On the very first page, the illustrations of a jaw missing from the victim's face and ribs jutting out shake you to the core. The penciling is perfect. Also, the heat wave has been beautifully shown, making me wonder if heat is a climactic need for Skinner to perform, such that if heat is removed, Skinner would cease to exist. Otherwise, why would Percy focus so much on the climate? It's a theory I'm willing to put my money on. It makes the narrative modern and compensates for all the gory visuals in a Spider-Man story. Another important thing that Ferreira highlights in his illustrations is Spider-Man's profile. It's sharp. His web is thicker, making it more solid and durable. This kind of illustration stays with you. It lingers. There's a haunting vibe to it. What weapon facilitates the meticulous skinning of its victims? Knives, razors, claws, or surgical instruments? Maybe. Seeing his killings, it's hard to comment on Skinner's body build, but pictures on the comic's cover page show him to be huge and muscular. No wonder he's able to knock down his victim first and then work his way on them. Alternatively, Skinner could be cutting up his victims while they are still alive, making them witness their gory deaths. Skinner also carries a flat, wide, pointed fencing sword. His face looks grotesque, and fangs and tentacles come out of his toothless mouth. His grotesque looks don't make him look like an artist, although he's one who, as rightfully mentioned by Detective LaPearl, is a maniacal trophy hunter. Not knowing much about Skinner makes him elusive, and one thing is certain: Spider-Man will have to dig up all the arsenal and powers to fight this predator. As previously mentioned, it's not going to be easy. Although it's not the first time Spider-Man is up against twisted villains, Skinner seems like a first of its kind. Marvelous verdict. Spider-Man vs. Skinner is sure to break some rules, but being a romantic, I would also like to see some continuity in Spider-Man's love life. How will he rescue MJ from that subway train? Will it be the beginning of a renewed relationship or an end? Since the makers are taking a far more violent route in this story, will the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man lose his personality and become distant? Being a crime aficionado, I love the murder mystery angle. But please don't mess up the DNA of Spider-Man's storytelling, which is all I ask. Let him not go the Superman way, getting relaunched multiple times with all kinds of storylines. I may be overreacting, but the makers have a vision of this storyline and how it will unfold. Either way, I'll accept whatever becomes of this series, as long it provides entertainment and retains Spider-Man's originality. Until then, I'll return with another original story to cover. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.